today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It appears that Philadelphia's own unbeaten up-and-comer, Liana Cruz, will be returning to action in what is a K-Ohen promotion show. K-Ohen, that's Callie Reese and Brian Cohen's promotional company. Show set to go down early next year, January the 18th. Liana Cruz is set to face an opponent that has yet to be announced, though for a fighter that has no amateur experience, no amateur background this early in her career, it's likely that her next fight will be another developmental fight because she needs it. Sporting a professional record of 9 wins with no losses, no draws, no recorded knockouts, not yet, but I've seen a good number of Liana Cruz's fights, and even if she's not the strongest finisher, she is a strong puncher. She does pack a punch, what I would describe as a natural, a fighter with natural ability. Because what she can do, she didn't pick it up in the amateurs. I reiterate, she has no amateur experience, but she can fight. That's what I've seen. She can fight. 27 years old, a fighter of Puerto Rican descent, a Philly Rican, wouldn't be a bad addition to the most valuable promotion stable. Jake Paul, Amanda Serrano, Crystal Rosado. They work with a lot of Puerto Rican fighters. Amanda Serrano herself manages a few. And I think Liana Cruz would fit right in over there. Now, this fight that she's about to have is scheduled for 8 rounds in the women's super flyweight division. We've been talking a lot about the women's super flyweight division because there's a lot of movement there as of late. 3 of the 4 champions at that weight are set to see action in the near future. 2, before this year is out, Irma Garcia, IBF champion, Ashley Gonzalez, WBC champion. They both have fights coming up before year's end. Mizuki Hiruta of Japan, the WBO champion, she's got a fight early next year in January. The same month as Liana's fight, as well as what up-and-comers are coming through. I know that Shannon Ryan has a fight in the books. She's got a fight coming up. Emma Doolin, who beat Shannon Ryan, she has a fight coming up. There's a lot happening in the super flyweight division, and that is where Liana Cruz campaigns. She's got a big personality, this kid. Very spunky, very spicy, and her superhero-themed ring walks are memorable. Keeps a very good schedule of fights. She actually fought 4 times last year and 3 times this one. So it's been a productive year for Liana Cruz, and she's going to hit the ground running early next year in January. I don't know who she's going to be fighting, but what stands out? What names stand out? Mariguen Valenga, Nancy Franco, Melis Gangloff. These are experienced fighters, a lot more experienced than Liana Cruz, and she beat them all comprehensively. Don't let that no contest fool you. The Nancy Franco fight was only ruled a no contest because they found marijuana in Liana Cruz's system. I think that's what that was. She beat her. That's how you know that, in spite of her lack of amateur experience, Liana definitely has something. Still questionable how far she can go in a division as deep as this one, because there really is a lot going on, and she has a lot to compete with. But so far, so good in terms of how she's been looking and how often she's been fighting, as well as who she's been fighting, her overall attitude, her demeanor, and the air about her. I see something in Liana Cruz, and I reiterate, I think she could be a good addition to the most valuable promotions stable because she's got a big personality, and that would lend itself to a very big stage. I don't know what her current arrangement is. I believe that she is managed by Brian Cohen. So for the time being, she's in very good and capable hands. You can tell by how often she fights. For a fighter that's not with a major promotional outfit or boxing on a major platform, they're doing a fantastic job of keeping her busy and active so that she can develop. She's getting on-the-job experience. That's what it is. She's learning on a job. And so far, so good. We'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches, and as we find out, who is it that she's going to be fighting in January? What do they bring to the table? We'll see. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, Sonny Edwards started camp for Callum Yafai without a trainer. Former flyweight world champion Sonny Edwards admitted he started training for his fight on Saturday with Callum Yafai without a trainer. Edwards, who defeated Adrian Curiel after suffering the only loss of his career to date to Jesse Bam Rodriguez, had long worked with Grant Smith at the Steel City Boxing Gym in Sheffield, but Edwards left earlier this year, having achieved great success with Smith. Edwards has been training with Chris Williams in Liverpool for Yafai. Williams trains Brandon Deord, who Edwards manages, and also Ryan Farag, a former Edwards opponent, so sparring is built into his new camp. This is the first that I had heard of this, that he left the Steel City boxing gym, because you were hearing so many good things about that gym and the fighters that train there. I didn't know Sonny left. I spent quite a bit of time with Chris, Edwards explained. Brandon has been a key sparring partner for a few camps for me, including this one, including the BAM one, and I spent a lot of time with him. He also trains a former opponent and now friend of mine, Ryan Farag. And Farag was my sort of breakout fight. The lads are in the gym, I've got good sparring there, he's got a good boxing mind, and I like his company, and being perfectly honest, I took this fight and accepted this fight before I'd found a coach, before I got through the process. I was training and I was making sure I was going places and doing everything I needed to do. However, I took the fight without having settled. Edwards traveled to work with a few coaches to see who he might like to fight under, and he also visited Adam Booth's gym to explore a potential relationship while he was in the South London area. With me and Adam, it was more, he had the Josh Kelly-ish Ishmael Davis fight, and I was staying down in London because I had brother Charlie Edwards' fight with Thomas Asamba the next week. Sonny manages Davis and his brother, and I'd been to a few other gyms. I'd been to Dublin and a few other places, and I used my time, had a little conversation with Adam, and I really respected and appreciated his time, and definitely considered doing something with him for this fight in the process of deciding everything. So that adds an air of intrigue to tomorrow's fight. That Sonny Edwards, a former champion, going in, you already know he's more experienced in the paid ranks than Yafai. He's got more fights, more rounds in the bank. But when you see a fighter changes his decorum, when he changes his trainer, that adds an air of spontaneity, whoever they end up with. Are they going to be better with them? Are they going to be worse? You know, some fighters need a change more than others. Recently, Teofimo Lopez enlisted the aid of Eddie Reynoso, and I think most people would agree that's a welcome change. But with Sonny, I didn't look at that guy in his last 1 or 2 fights and think to myself something has to change. He's a very good fighter, or at least he has been up until this point. If something about his situation changed, we don't know what version of him we're going to get tomorrow. I'm not a 21-year-old with no responsibilities. I've got kids. I've got other things going on. Things I have to weigh up in my life, my lifestyle, what can be possible to do in my life right now while I've got other things going on. Our times of maybe, what I needed, and what he could offer at this point right now didn't completely match up, and it was an easy conversation, and I've got a lot of respect for Adam Booth. I've got a lot of time for him. I enjoy his company, so who knows what the future will hold. I've always got on with Adam, maybe at a level as well that's not only just boxing. Grant Smith and Sonny Edwards, now 21-1 with 4 KOs, had a terrific run together. Edwards explained the decision to move on was not personal and that it was simply time to try something else.
Why? Because you lost to BAM?
You know, everybody at or around these weights ain't Bam Rodriguez. I mean, that's just a tough fight as it is. Do you really need to change everything because you lost to BAM? I'd struggle to call it a fallout, if I'm honest, said the 28-year-old Edwards. It's more the progression of 10 years in the same place, things going on, more internally, but not in the sense of people's character. When we're dealing with one gym, a lot of different characters, a lot of different egos, there's always going to be different situations that arise. Environments aren't always what they were, but without anyone being to blame, I wouldn't say it's a fallout in the sense I've still got fighters I manage and work with management. Working-wise, I've done corners with Grant since I left the gym, working with young Brandon Scott. Yeah, it's not particularly a fallout. I just think at this part of my life, having a bit more freedom and having maybe more freedom of where I'm spending my time, training in Liverpool, bringing me back to the old camp days, traveling at the weekend, switching on down there, and seeing my kids at the weekend. It's been nice.
But the same applies, at least for me. Sonny Edwards has been a bankable fighter the whole time he's had Grant Smith in his corner. When you change that, you don't really know if it's for the better. You don't really know what you're gonna get.
Taking on a fight like this one when you're in between trainers, that either communicates confidence or necessity. That you're confident even without Grant Smith, you can beat Yafai. Or you're backed into a corner, you need money, and you gotta do what you gotta do.
Sonny Edwards has 22 professional bouts to Galal Yafai's 8.
It took Bam Rodriguez 9 rounds, some of which were very competitive, to finally get Sonny out of there. Is Galal Yafai, that kind of fighter?
He is an Olympic gold medalist.
Being honest with you, I've seen all 8 of Galal Yafai's fights, and he hasn't impressed me. He hasn't blown me away yet. I know what he comes from, I know what his pedigree is, that he's got some tools, but nothing really jumps out at you. So I'm not sure he's going to be able to get the job done against Sonny tomorrow.
Sonny can make himself a very hard target. Who has Galal Yafai fought so far in 8 professional bouts that would have prepared him for a tricky fighter like this one?
Guy who can stay on his toes, a moving target, that can fight on a swivel, box on the outside, slip and slide on the inside.
Yeah, Bam knocked him out. Bam. I don't know that Galal Yafai is of the same ilk as Bam Rodriguez, that he has as many tools as Bam Rodriguez, so I'm gonna go conservative. I'm gonna go with Sonny Edwards on points tomorrow.
By now we all know that Sonny Edwards is not a knockout merchant, but he's a hell of a fighter. He's a hell of a boxer. Tough as nails. It took a lot for Bam to get him out of there, and I just don't know that Galal Yafai can repeat something like that he can do the same thing, not after just 8 fights.
So I'm gonna go with Sonny Edwards over 12 rounds. Sonny Edwards to out-hustle and outmaneuver Galal Yafai to a points win.
And finally, boxing on the same show as Sonny, returning Callum Smith is on course for a Joshua Buatsi fight in February of next year.
Riyadh season show.
Callum Smith returns to the ring over 8 rounds against Carlos Galvan in Birmingham on Saturday amid speculation that he could fight Joshua Buatsi in early 2025. As long as everything goes to plan, Smith, 29-2 with 21 KOs, will definitely target the light heavyweight division's leading contenders. Galvan, a Colombian-based in Spain, who is 20-14 with 2 draws, 19 knockouts. In January of this year, Smith, the former world super middleweight champion, was stopped by Artur Beterbiev in a challenge for the unified light heavyweight titles. For a while, it looked like the loss to Beterbiev, who went on to beat Dmitry Bivol to become undisputed champion, may have ended Smith's excellent career, but the 34-year-old Liverpudlian has decided to pursue a final assault on the light heavyweight division. Rumors have begun to swirl about Smith potentially meeting the WBO interim champion Joshua Buatsi in February of next year. Smith still harbors hopes of becoming a 2-weight world champion and beating the Londoner.
That's what I've been saying. There's still money out there for Callum Smith.
Beating Joshua Buatsi would provide him with a shortcut back to the top. Their fight would be a risk for Buatsi, but Smith may just present the type of high-profile, lucrative challenge that would tempt him back into the ring if, as is widely expected, Beterbiev and Bivol agree to a rematch that same month. Although rumors about an imminent agreement are premature, Smith's promoter, Eddie Hearn of Matchroom, confirmed that Buatsi is exactly the type of opponent that Smith is looking for. I think it's a great fight, he told Boxing Scene. Really, the talks that we're having with Callum are about throwing him into a big fight. Anthony Yarde, Joshua Buatsi. I think there's all kinds of fights that have been proposed through Riyadh season. We've not spoken to Joshua Buatsi about that fight, but we've put our name forward for any of those kinds of fights for Callum. This Saturday is just about getting a run out, getting a win after the Beterbiev defeat, and just going for it in the first quarter of next year.
So when Joshua Buatsi decided to leave Matchroom for Boxer, it seemed to me that he wanted to focus on the domestic scene. He didn't want to challenge for a world title just yet.
And remember what the story was at the time. Before he left, he was offered a shot at Dmitry Bivol, which he rejected en route to the boxer side of things. Since having gone there, the most that he's done is fight a domestic level guy in Dan Aziz. There was talk of putting him in the ring with Anthony Yarde, but all of that fell apart for one reason or another. Now Callum Smith is stepping up.
He wants to win a world title at light heavyweight, but he just wants to be in big fights. Smith's brother, the former world title challenger Stefan, told Boxing Scene that although Smith wants to get back in with the light heavyweight division's biggest names, Saturday's 8-round fight in Birmingham will be invaluable.
Facing Beterbiev was never going to be straightforward, but Smith never found his groove.
No shame in that. Dmitry Bivol struggled to find it with that same guy. Everybody has.
And fighting just once a year, in almost 2.5 years beforehand, may have played its next part. Rather than going into another big fight from a standing start, Smith can enter 2025 with some momentum behind him, and his brother insists that a fully fit, well-prepared Smith remains a fearsome prospect for anybody at 175 pounds. I think the Buatsi one has been mentioned to him, and Callum, Swifty said, he's got no problem fighting anyone in the division, it's just he's not going to make the same mistake twice. I've heard it said on previous occasions that Callum Smith wants a lot of money every time he gets out there, and that's why he only wants the big fights, the big names. But that's counterintuitive without those filler fights, those quick runouts in between to keep you sharp ahead of something bigger.
Now, that's not saying that Callum hasn't had those kinds of fights in the past.
Once or twice, but that's saying that he could stand to be more active. So here's an example. Callum only fought once the entirety of 2022, only once the entirety of 2023.
He's boxing too infrequently. He needs to be more active. The more you fight, the sharper you are.
He went into the fight against the number 1, now the 4-belt holder in Artur Beterbiev, and he went into it after 17 months out, which is absolutely barmy, really. And it's something that, looking back in hindsight, it was the wrong move. He should have fought beforehand. But going on after that one, sort of another year later, it will be 13 months if he just waits till February again. It's stupid. You can make mistakes, but you can't make the same mistake twice, especially not in boxing. And the boxing fans wouldn't believe it as an excuse either. He's got to learn from it, and he's shown that he is. It's a short notice job, but it's about activity, getting out and being active. I'm his biggest fan. He's unbelievable. Callum, with momentum and a bit of activity, is a scary prospect. He's boxed once a year for about 4 years or so if he can start getting fights under his belt and building momentum again, he's a force for anyone. Personally, I think he's a force for Buatsi. I think he's a force for Anthony Yarde. I think he could give either of them a very hard fight, but it's just like his brother said. He's got to be more active. There's no reason for it.
No good reason.
That he shouldn't box more often. Time squandered is time that you don't get back. It doesn't replenish itself. When it's gone, it's gone.
You gotta use it.
Could you imagine the position he'd be in if he were to start next year having not boxed since the beginning of this one, losing to Artur? That's no way to kick off the new year. So it's good that he's getting back out there. It's good that he's targeting Joshua Buatsi. He's got his head in the right place. And it's just like his brother said, when he's on his game, he's a force to be reckoned with.
Those are the fights I want to see him in. A Buatsi fight, a Yarde fight.
While the world title picture sorts itself out, those are the fights I want to see Callum in.